Pittsburgh Steelers made a move. Whether you consider that the move, the splashy enough, well, that's on you. But Kyle Duggar is coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers in an attempt to replace Deshaun Elliott, and it kind of feels like a lot of the same. But it opens the eyes of many, myself included, that the Pittsburgh Steelers really are trying. They really are out there trying to stay competitive and contenders. And if this works better than the last one, maybe the Steelers still have a shot. Kyle Duggar comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a guy who hasn't had an interception in 2 seasons, who only started 4 games this year, who was a former captain of the New England Patriots, now at 29 years old is not, and the downfall has been there and has been very evident. I mean, this is a man who had 9 interceptions in 3 seasons, 2 touchdowns on top of those 9 interceptions. Now his stat line simply reads 17 tackles. That's what he's done this season. In 4 starts, 7 games. His snap count has been reduced, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking at another guy that the New England Patriots have moved on from, joining Jabril Peppers, who everybody is asking, where is he and why is he not playing? But again, we could talk Kyle Duggar and the addition to replace Deshaun Elliott and if it's good enough. But I think we also have to talk about that the Pittsburgh Steelers may have just opened a can of worms to say this is not the end and that they are well aware that things need to be better and that they have an opportunity at the trade deadline. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Before we get going, hit that like and subscribe button. Can't thank you enough for that. I come to you each morning, Monday through Friday, with the latest news on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And today, the news, if you missed it last night, is that Kyle Duggar is coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for a 6th-round pick. The 29-year-old is out of New England, a former 2nd-round pick, a guy who has started almost his entire NFL career, which is a positive, and comes to replace Deshaun Elliott, who the Pittsburgh Steelers simultaneously moved to injured reserve with a knee injury because they're hopeful he'll return, but right now it does not look likely. Here's where it gets interesting, because I don't think Kyle Duggar, I'm terrible at names, changes the Pittsburgh Steelers and makes them contenders again. I don't even have faith that he's going to be on the field more than Jabril Peppers has been on the field since the Pittsburgh Steelers signed him to originally replace Deshaun Elliott when he got hurt in week 1, which is very rarely. Jabril Peppers is a guy that everybody is asking, why are you not playing? Why is he not playing? He made a fumble or forced a fumble in his only game where he played quality reps, and now Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill are out snapping him all the time and not playing better than him. Doesn't make any sense. And I expect the Steelers to do the same thing with their new safety. That's my expectation. But it opened the door for all of us to see that the Pittsburgh Steelers are still aggressive, that they are still making moves. And you could say, and you're going to say, many will say, Kyle Duggar for a 6th-round pick, that's not aggressive. But it's the replacement. It's the timely fashion. It's the we're not sitting around and waiting any longer to lose guys and to not have that replacement option. That's what it is. And to me, that says the Pittsburgh Steelers have just under 1 week, 6 days, to make decisions across the board. And in those 6 days, they have decisions to make. Is their defensive line good enough? Where is the wide receiver? Because I still do not trust that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is actually going to show up and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know who signs a deal a week after agreeing to a deal in the midst of an NFL season, but I don't think that that's a guy that comes in here and replaces the need that you have at wide receiver. The Steelers have a pretty bad group of guys playing defense right now. And while you're not going to replace Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, you might replace Darius Slay and you might replace Keanu Benton and you might find ways to retool by selling guys like Pat Freiermuth and Alex Highsmith. And if those are all on the table, then the Steelers have a real opportunity to regroup at the trade deadline and see what happens. I don't know how much my optimism can rise at this point, but I also think that my optimism is based off of a 2-game losing streak where the defense looks so bad that I don't think anybody can lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers or that the Pittsburgh Steelers can beat anyone. But again, this deal, in my eyes, shows me that Omar Khan is making phone calls and that he and Mike Tomlin are willing to do what it takes, and that this may not be the same Pittsburgh Steelers team that in years past would lose 2 games in a row, would lose guys to injury, and then say things on Tuesday like, we like the guys that we have in-house. We're cool with the guys that we have in-house. We're fine. We'll call guys up from the practice squad. The Steelers are not interested in calling anybody up from the practice squad. They're not. They're interested in retooling this team as much as they can and adding guys that are quality because they understand that at 4-3, they're still atop the AFC North and have a shot at something, and they want that shot to continue. Me, you, and most other people are sitting around going, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to win a Super Bowl this season. And maybe that changes. I'm always keeping an open mind. But the Steelers are sitting around going, how do we win a Super Bowl this season? How do we get there? We need to try, and we have an opportunity to try. To me, that means that they might make a splash. And I don't know what that splash is going to be. If I had to guess, it's a wide receiver. That would be my big guess, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not just going to bring in Marquez Valdes-Scantling in a week and say, that's the guy, everything's fine. In my eyes, they're going to call and see if they can get another low-end wide receiver. It's not a Jalen Waddle. It's not a Chris Olave. It's a cheap Jacoby Myers. It's anybody who's below a Jacoby Myers. And that's where they're going to go. But that's what they need. A guy to work in here as a wide receiver 3 because that's what they don't have. In my eyes, if there really is a defender out there that could change this defense, the Pittsburgh Steelers might be open to changing the defense. And they weren't open to that, in my eyes, 48 hours ago. That just wasn't a thought that I had or anybody else had. But Mike Tomlin went to the podium on Tuesday, on his normal Tomlin Tuesday, and said, we're going to evaluate everything and we're open to all options. And then 8 hours later, Kyle Duggar was on the Pittsburgh Steelers. He didn't lie, and I think more could be coming. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to make one big giant move for Dexter Lawrence or Max Crosby, but I don't think that they necessarily need those big giant moves. I think that they need moves to supplement the struggles that they have and to add to a group that clearly needs adding to. That's where I think the moves could be made, and I'm not shutting down that they won't. And again, in my eyes, doesn't help much. In their eyes, keeps them afloat as Super Bowl contenders. As for Kyle Duggar, I wouldn't go out and buy his jersey today. I'd sit down, I'd relax, and I'd say that hopefully this opens the door for Chuck Clark and Juan Thornhill to play less, and for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have an opportunity that by the end of the season, Jabril Peppers and Kyle Duggar, who might be their best 2 safeties on the roster right now, are the starting safeties for this team if Deshaun Elliott does not return at any point. Because you can't win a Super Bowl with the guys that were out on the field against Joe Flacco and the guys that were out on the field against Jordan Love. But maybe you get a shot against 2 guys who used to start on a bad football team in New England and who are probably better players at this point in their career than the 2 guys that the Steelers are trying to make work in their current starting rotation. All right, guys, with that said, thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Before you head out of here, hit that like and subscribe button. Can't thank you enough. And with that said, I'll be back later with the flagship show. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.